But I'm going to go ahead and start because we have a very full program today. And I'm just so pleased to see so many people showing up for it. And it's exciting to me. I'm excited to share it with you. I want to thank Audrey Lee, who brought all these interesting people to my attention and suggested that we put together this Poems from the Night Sky event for the Poets' Corner. So I'm pleased to do that. I want to take just a few moments. If you're new to the Poets' Corner, we founded it, my friend Catherine Seitz and I founded the Poets' Corner in June of 2020 when we were all sheltered in, and we wanted desperately to have some community around people that love the written and spoken word. So we created this, the Poets' Corner for writers and readers of poetry and short prose. And we've been hosting almost 3 years now of Zoom events every month, usually on the second Sunday. Sometimes it's the first or third. And there are so many wonderful events planned for 2023. You can see the full schedule, almost the full schedule of events for the coming year on our website, poetscorner.org. But I'm going to take a moment to tell you about just a couple of upcoming events. First of all, in February, we've had an annual celebration of love. And this year, we have an open call for submissions of poems, epistolary poems, love letters. So we're excited to see what comes in, and we'll select 10 to 15 of them to be read on the event on February 12th. So on our website, you can find the link to submit a poem if you'd like, as well as a link to sign up to listen on February 12th. And then in March, we have the first prose event that we've had in a while. We have short stories in the form that's called a story cycle, where every individual story is complete in and of itself, but the collection of stories all intertwine and inform each other. Morgan Talty is going to read from Night of the Living Res, which are stories that all take place in the Passamaquoddy Indian Reservation. I think it's Passamaquoddy, maybe it's Penobscot, sorry, should have checked that. But they're wonderful, wonderful stories. And then Laura Bonazzoli will read from Consecration Pond, which are all stories that take place around a fictional pond in Maine. So you don't want to miss that. That's going to be the first Sunday of March on March 5th. And if you're local, I would invite you to come to an open mic event on January 2nd that will take place in Belfast, Maine at Marshall's Wharf. And we're collaborating with Waterfall Arts and Toad Hall Editions to bring you this event called Draft. So it's an event to read work in process, poetry, prose, whatever it is, shitty first drafts, whatever you got in progress, and have fun at Marshall's Wharf. And then save the date for May 20th in Camden, Maine, for our first live Camden Festival of Poetry. And there'll be more about that on our website coming soon. But now for today's event, which I'm just so excited about, we're going to start with Tara Roberts Zabriskie. Tara is a documentary filmmaker and freelance videographer who works with businesses and other organizations to create videos for educational and promotional purposes. Her most recent project is called Defending the Dark, about dark skies in Maine. And it's a fabulous film. It's a 30-minute documentary film about why light pollution is harmful to humans and wildlife and explains things that you can do in your own backyard to bring back the night sky. So Tara's going to show you a trailer from the film, and we'll have a link that you could donate to watch the full film if you'd like to see it. Tara is coming to us from Maryland today, I believe. Tara, if you could unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm just unmuting myself now. Hi, thanks for having me today. So exciting to be part of this poetry night. So my film, Defending the Dark, I started filming in fall of 2001, and it premiered last summer at the Maine International Film Festival. And I got inspired. Well, I guess my story goes back to when I was a teenager and slept every summer night out in my backyard looking at the stars, and just fell in love with it, and then studied astronomy up and through college, on a very amateur kind of level. But then as I got into documentary filmmaking and making conservation films, I connected with somebody up in New Hampshire who wanted to do some education around light pollution and what we can do to protect the night sky and the animals that are impacted by light pollution. And then I got connected with more people and organizations in Maine, and ended up working really closely with Nancy Hathaway, who's here with us today, of Dark Sky Maine, and put together this film on why dark skies are important, why we need to turn off our lights. You know, it's not just for seeing the stars, it's also for protecting the birds and protecting the animals, the amphibians that need that nightness to live and to breed. And also for our safety out on the streets. It's easier for our eyes to see if there's proper lighting on the streets, that isn't overspilling into our eyes and up into the sky. So there's a lot that goes into light pollution, a lot of ways that it affects our whole environment. But the cool thing about it is that there's actually really simple ways that we can each make changes at our houses and in our cities to eliminate that light pollution. So the film has been really well received. Like I said, it premiered at the Maine International Film Festival, and we had a tremendous turnout, and people just loved it. And it's been shown at 4 other film festivals. Next week, I'm going to Borrego Springs, California, to show it there, along with a panel discussion about light pollution. And at the end of January, it will show on Maine Public Television. And then in April, it will be sent to public broadcasting television stations across the country. And it'll also be available on the PBS app at that point in time. So we're really excited to start getting it out into the world. And I'm going to show you the trailer right now. So let me show my screen here.
I moved back home to Maine, the coast of Maine, in the early 2000s. And one night I got out of the car and looked up, and it was like, oh my gosh, the Milky Way. The stars were so bright and the sky was so black. It was an awe moment. If you look at a light pollution map, you can see in the state of Maine this big dark spot, which is the place where there's little light pollution, and you can see the Milky Way, and you can see stars here that you can't see on most of the East Coast. This area surrounding Katahdin has the largest areas of dark sky east of the Mississippi River.
So dark sky preservation, which sounds like it's about bringing the stars back, which it does, is really about a much bigger issue. The real problems cover many different areas. One is if you live in a light polluted area, you are at increased risk of breast or prostate cancer because it affects your body temperature. Pollination, which we desperately need, it's not just for pretty flowers and trees, but your food has to be pollinated. So that can be lowered by as much as 60% in areas that are light polluted. And Americans, believe it or not, spend $3 billion a year paying for electricity to put on lighting that's going up in the sky. So we really are at a crossroads right now with lighting. If we keep going the way we're going, the stars are going to go away. We're going to see fewer and fewer bird and insect species, more pollution, more glare, more issues. Flip side, people wake up to this and go, oh, this is a real problem. It's an easy fix and I save money. I'm in. Let's do that. And everybody goes and does that.
I hope that the amount of light that's coming from this region stays consistent, if not, is diminished over time.
It means for the future that we stay connected to ourselves and our environment.
And to really understand that we don't own it, we don't control it, but we have a tremendous impact on it. Our goal is to get everybody doing this everywhere. But if people can come here and learn about it, see that you can still have a nicely lit, safe area, but be doing it in a dark sky friendly way, that they'll go home and do that too.
That's amazing. If you eliminate a light, or you redirect a light, or you change the color of that light bulb, the result is you get to see the dark skies immediately.
People come and step out of their cars and look up and go, oh my gosh. And the wonder and the awe, that's really what it's about.
And I also hope that the people that come here to see the dark skies take that experience and that information and take it home with them.
We want to save the stars.
Wow. I love that, Tara. Thank you so much for showing us the trailer. And we're going to hear from Nancy Hathaway a little later in the program. And we'll also have a chance at the end of our program for you to put some questions in the chat and ask Tara questions that you'd like to ask about making the film, or Nancy about the Dark Sky project. So, but first, we're going to go to some poetry. And I want to introduce Midge Goldberg, who is the editor of this wonderful anthology called Outer Space 100 Poems. And I don't know that you can see that when I hold it up here, but it is just a gorgeous hardcover little collection of poetry that Midge edited and put together. She's also a poet herself. Her third collection of poetry, called To Be Opened After My Death, was published by Kelsey Books in 2021. And her book, Snowman's Code, received the Richard Wilbur Poetry Award. She's also received the Howard Nemeroff Sonnet Award. She lives in New Hampshire. You can buy her book, which I think you're going to want to do after you hear from her and from these poems. You can buy it on Amazon or directly from the publisher at cambridge.org. So Midge, up to you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Meg, for inviting me to read. I had the pleasure, I saw in the film that this showed the AMC's Metawisla Lodge, and I had the pleasure of being at their See the Dark Festival in October doing the first reading from this book. I think Tara was there too, and it was a great place and doing great work. So as Meg mentioned, I'll be reading from Outer Space 100 Poems. It's an anthology that I edited for Cambridge University Press, and it was just released in December here in the States. as Meg mentioned, I'm also a poet, but the process for putting this book together was very different than the process for a regular book. So I started this. This project in 2019. I had the fortune of being included, having a translation of mine included in a previous book in the series, Romanticism 100 Poems, which was edited by Michael Ferber, a UNH professor. And when I saw the format, I thought this would be great for a collection about outer space. It was the 50th anniversary of the moon launch was coming up. The James Webb Telescope was getting ready to be launched. And I just thought, this would be fantastic and interesting to a lot of people. So I queried the editor and she agreed. So that was great. The process is that you have to turn in a table of contents. So the first table of contents I turned in would have been a lot more people that you recognized. Auden was in there, Nikki Giovanni, Adrienne Rich. There was a poem that had been on the front page of the New York Times on the day of the moon launch by Archibald MacLeish. That was in there. I turned this over and then reality hit, is that permissions are very, very high and the budget for the book was very, very low. So I had to kind of go back. I looked for some other older poems. I started looking around, in other languages. And then I found that, even though poems were older, if they were in another language, usually the translation was new. So back to the permissions issue. So then I did a third pass. And this is where it got really special. I did a lot of research and reached out to a lot of people. And I found so many wonderful poems and translations. I found a space archaeologist in Australia. Her name's Dr. Alice Gorman. And she had a wonderful poem about the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova, cosmonaut, and it was taken from the transcript of her trip into space. So that's kind of a long poem. I'm not reading that today, but if you get a chance, I really encourage you to look at it. I found a friend of a friend of a friend who's not only a poet, but translates Sanskrit. So I have a beautiful little Sanskrit poem in here. The poet Linda Paston agreed to let me use her poem without permission because her son-in-law is an astronomer and she thought this would be a nice surprise for him to have this book with her poem in it. So that was great. There were some older poems that I just really connected with or that sounded so modern. So that was really the last pass, and I thought I was done. And then at the very last minute, the editor said, by the way, public domain's not the same in the UK and the rest of the world as it is in the US, which of course probably I should have known. But so in the US, it had to be a certain number of years, I think it's 75, after the publication date of the poem. But in the rest of the world, it had to be, or at least in the UK, it had to be 75 years after the death of the poet. So I had to go back. I had like a chronological list, and I had to pick this swath of people whose poems were old enough to have been published more than 75 years. And then I had to check each of their birth dates. So there I am, like E.E. Cummings, out. Conrad Aiken, out. Robert Graves, out. And then I had this translation by Lorca, and I was like, oh, assassinated, yes! And oh my God, it's so ghoulish, but this is how I had to choose the final draft of who I could include. So, okay, now I'm gonna just move on to the poems. And so, of course, a totally naive assumption on my part, but I was so thrilled to find poets. They happened to be women poets in the 17th century and 18th century who were really just so excited about traveling in space. I mean, really about space. There's a poem by Anna Letitia Barbeau written 1770s where she's describing traveling in space. There's a poem by Phyllis Wheatley, the former slave, where she's also imagining flying in space. The one I'm going to read you today is from around 1700 exactly, maybe 1698. The poet's name is Lady Mary Chudley, and the poem is from The Song of the Three Children, paraphrased. Ye glittering stars who float in liquid air, both ye that round the sun in different circles move, and ye that shine like suns above, whose light and heat attending planets share. In your high stations your creator praise, while we admire both him and you. Though vastly distant, yet our eyes we raise and would your lofty regions view, those immense spaces which no limits know, where purest ether unconfined doth flow. But our weak sight cannot such journeys go. 'Tis thought alone the distance must explore. Nothing but that to such a height can soar. Nothing but that can thither wing its way, and there with boundless freedom stray. And at one view, 10,000 sparkling orbs survey, innumerable worlds and dazzling springs of light. Oh, the vast prospect, oh, the charming sight, how full of wonder and delight. How mean, how little does our globe appear. Well, I thought that was especially suited to being able to see the skies, is that, you know, she's just dreaming. She can't see that far, and her imagination can take her there. And now we really can see that far, and everything that Tara and Nancy and all these groups are doing to make sure we can keep seeing all of that. So I'm going to jump ahead to a modern one where they actually are. This is a poem by Tracy K. Smith. It's from My God, It's Full of Stars, and it's about her father who worked on the Hubble telescope. I thought it was a nice contrast from Lady Chudley, who could only imagine it, to a poem really where they were talking about what they could see. And the last two lines in this poem, I think, are the most chilling in the whole book. From My God, It's Full of Stars. When my father worked on the Hubble telescope, he said they operated like surgeons, scrubbed and sheathed in papery green, the room a clean cold, a bright white. He'd read Larry Niven at home and drink scotch on the rocks, his eyes exhausted and pink. These were the Reagan years, when we lived with our finger on the button and struggled to view our enemies as children. My father spent whole seasons bowing before the oracle eye, hungry for what it would find. His face lit up whenever anyone asked, and his arms would rise as if he were weightless, perfectly at ease in the never-ending night of space. On the ground, we tied postcards to balloons for peace. Prince Charles married Lady Di. Rock Hudson died. We learned new words for things. The decade changed. The first few pictures came back blurred, and I felt ashamed for all the cheerful engineers, my father and his tribe. The second time, the optics jibed. We saw to the edge of all there is. So brutal and alive, it seemed to comprehend us back. The next one, I'm jumping back a little bit in time. So this is by Claude McKay, who was a poet during the Harlem Renaissance. And it's kind of funny because he's kind of making fun of those very old poems about the moon, the silvery orb, the goddess Cynthia, and all that. This one is called A Song of the Moon. And also it has a little bit of connection to what we're talking about lights and what they do to what we can see. A Song of the Moon. The moonlight breaks upon the city's domes and falls along cemented seats, steel and stone, upon the grayness of a million homes, lugubrious in unchanging monotone, upon the clothes behind the tenement that hang like ghosts suspended from the lines, linking each flat to each, indifferent, incongruous, and strange, the moonlight shines. There is no magic from your presence here. Ho moon, sad moon, tuck up your trailing robe, whose silver seems antique and so severe against the glow of one electric globe. Go spill your beauty on the laughing faces of happy flowers that bloom 1,000 hues, waiting on tiptoe in the wilding spaces to drink your wine mixed with sweet draughts and dews. I love how he's just like totally making fun of the moon. And I'm gonna end with this little one. It might not seem like it's about outer space, but right at the end, this is by Deborah Warren. Right at the end, she just gets in her little, the sense of adventure that these poems are about. It's called The Ballet of the 8-Week Kittens. Plus, I love cats. So my cat's right over there. The Ballad of the 8-Week Kittens by Deborah Warren. With such abandon, buoyant, wide jetés around the kitchen, furniture and air possessed by arcs of fur and ricochets, plunges and cabrioles, they're everywhere. Dance, kittens. Take the table, flying, jump drunk. You have cause to pirouette, more than you dream of. Barns and meadows lying outside, things you don't imagine yet. Hurl yourself in knots across the floor, leaps, demented entrechat, ignore the galaxies beyond the kitchen door. And when you tumble to it, that there's more than this, more than the little world you know, take me out there with you when you go. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful, Midge. Thank you. What an interesting collection of different poems from different eras. So it's funny how the constraints just open you up to new discoveries. We're going to switch back for a moment now to hear from Nancy Hathaway, who's the president of Dark Sky Maine. And Nancy is a 10th generation Mainer, I discovered, which is amazing. I don't think I've ever met somebody who's a 10th generation Mainer before. She's also a psychotherapist and a senior Dharma teacher, as well as a mindfulness instructor. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the Dark Sky Maine project, and then I'll let you know how you can make a donation.
Thank you, Meg. I'm delighted to have all of this attention on dark skies. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, Nancy, you've frozen up a little.
What's that?
You froze for a moment there. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've been freezing every now and then. I'm sorry. There's not anything I can do about it. I've tried. And it's not that cold. So yeah, so Dark Skies in Maine. The Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument, which is on the eastern boundary of Baxter State Park, became a dark sky sanctuary and not so long ago. And that means that the dark skies there, the skies are almost as dark as Antarctica, not quite. But here in Maine, on the light pollution map that you saw earlier in the film, that black spot is around Katahdin, and we have the largest area of dark sky east of the Mississippi River. So we were able to preserve it, which means that right now in Katahdin Woods and Waters, there are actually no lights, no electric lights, no gas lights. And it of course borders on Baxter State Park. So if you get a chance, not this time of year, but in the summer especially, there are places to view the dark skies. And usually in September, we hold a Stars Over Katahdin party, which is easy to get to. It's just before Katahdin Woods and Waters. So it's just off the tarred road, about 500 feet. And if we started this darkskymaine.com, that's the website. The nonprofit is Dark Sky Maine. And if you go to darkskymaine.com and put in your email address, we can send you updates on when things are happening around the dark skies in Maine, both in the sky and just events. We hold 4 virtual Zoom star parties on the solstices and the equinoxes. And we also offer classes, and we also offer star parties and virtual night tours. We do ask for donations for that. And we're also working with the legislature, because there's a legislator who's interested in some sort of dark sky bill, hoping to maintain our dark skies. And in Tara's film, and I hope we're all so grateful for to Tara, because she has made this lovely film, which people are seeing more and more. And as she said, it'll be on Maine Public, and it'll also be available nationally. So people in the North Woods who have these dark skies, a lot of people don't really realize it, that they have these precious skies. A lot of them take it for granted. But I think now Dark Sky Maine and a lot of other things that are happening, our mission is to educate and to let people know how we can have lighting that's safe lighting, and also protects the sky. So on that note, just Tara was saying that we actually can do something in our own houses and yards. And what we can do is pretty simple. We can put a cover over the light that we have outside, so that the light doesn't shoot up into the night sky, but it goes down onto the ground where we need the light. And also that the light bulb doesn't go below the plane of that cover. Also, when we buy lights for our houses inside, the LEDs are really important because they save electricity, but very few people actually know that when you buy an LED, you can buy LEDs that have different temperatures. And it goes from about 2,000 to 5,000. And on very small letters on the cardboard box, it shows the measurement. So what we're looking for inside lighting is 2,700 kelvins, 2,700 K. So you'll have to look for it maybe for a while, because it took me a while to find it. The 4,000 and 5,000 kelvins, that's the measurement of temperature, which offers the blue light, sort of the light that is on car headlights that really shines into our eyes when we're driving. We want to be really careful not to put that in. And it's a much warmer light. It's a softer light. It's not considered daylight. Daylight is the 4,000 and 5,000. So that's huge on what we can all do here in Maine. And it's changing very quickly, very, very fast, faster than we can really keep up with it. So if you like the dark skies, I would encourage you to send us your emails so that we can, when we go before the legislature, if you want to send in some, testimony of how much you love the night sky, you'll be able to do that. And maybe later, if there are any questions, I can help to Tara answer them. But thank you so much for having me and having Tara and your outer space. I loved the last line, take me out there with you when you go. So, often we let the cats outside, but take me with you. And yeah.
Thank you, Nancy. It's wonderful to hear what we can each individually do and not leave our lights on at night. All night, our outdoor lights. That's, a small step, but it takes a lot of these small steps as well as big steps. And I did put a message in the chat. If you go to thepoetscorner.org/events, and the Poems from the Night Sky event has a link to donate just $12. Those donations are shared with Defending the Dark and Dark Sky Maine, and you will get a link to the full film so you can see it in advance. It's a 30-minute documentary. And thanks for all the work you're both doing. We will have time for questions at the end, so think about what questions you'd like to put in the chat. But for now, we're going to go back to some poetry, and we're going to hear from John Paul Caponegro next. And John Paul is both a photographer and a poet, and he's a pioneer in photography, working in digital media. And his art has been exhibited internationally and all over. And I've been delighted to work with him over the past few years on poetry and different forms of poetry, and to hear his poetry. He's going to read from his own poetry as well as a couple from Midge Goldberg's collection, Outer Space, 100 Poems.
Thank you, Meg. It's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for putting this event together. I think dark skies are something we're all very much involved in. I wanted to, that's fun. If I hold up the book, it disappears.
Right.
Background. This is a wonderful book. It's invisible. You can actually see the stars through it. I chose two local pieces here to read out of Midge's wonderful collection, Outer Space. The first is a poem translated by Charles Godfrey Leland from the Passamaquoddy, the previous caretakers of the land that's home for the Poets' Corner, and many of us who live close by it. It's
John
called,
Paul, can you, somebody said the sound's a little difficult. Can you speak up or move closer?
I'll get as close to the speaker as I can. How's that?
Great, thank
Nope.
you.
Good. This one's called The Song of the Stars. We are the stars which sing. We sing with our light. We are the birds of fire. We fly over the sky. Our light is a voice. We make a road for the spirits to pass over. Among us are 3 hunters who chase a bear. There never was a time when they were not hunting. We look down on the mountains. This is the song of the stars. The second one, well known to many of us who live here. This is an excerpt from another poem in the collection. So familiar to many of us who have visited Mount Batting. Of course, it's Edna St. Vincent Millay's, and it's an excerpt from Renaissance. All I could see from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. I turned and looked another way and saw there 3 islands in a bay. So with my eyes I traced the line of the horizon, thin and fine, straight around till I was come back to where I'd started from. And all I saw from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. Over these things I could not see. These were the things that bounded me, and I could touch them with my hand, almost, I thought, from where I stand. And all at once things seemed so small. My breath came short and scarce at all. But sure the sky is big, I said, miles and miles above my head. So here upon my back I'll lie and look my fill into the sky. And so I looked, and after all, the sky was not so very tall. The sky, I said, must somewhere stop. And sure enough, I see the top. The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I most could touch it with my hand. And reaching up my hand to try, I screamed to feel it touch the sky. I screamed, and lo, infinity came down and settled over me. Forced back my scream into my chest, bent back my arm upon my breast, and pressing of the undefined, the definition of my mind, held up before my eyes a glass through which my shrinking sight did pass, until it seemed I must behold immensity made manifold. Whispered to me a word whose sound deafened the air for worlds around, and brought unmuffled to my ears the gossiping of friendly spheres. The creaking of the tented sky, the ticking of eternity, I saw and heard and knew at last the how and why of all things past and present and forevermore. The universe, cleft to the core, lay open to my probing sense, that, sickening, I would fain pluck thence, and could not, nay, but needs must suck at the great wound, and could not pluck my lips away till I had drawn all venom out. Ah, fearful pawn, for my omniscience paid I a toll in infinite remorse of soul. Lovely. I'm going to finish with a short one of my own, called Dizzy. I feel solid, stable, and still when I'm none of these things. Or if I am these things only very briefly. It dizzies me to think about how quickly we're moving together. The earth turns on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour, while we revolve around the sun 60 times swifter, and the sun whirls us tethered to the center of the galaxy 7 times faster than that, and our galaxy accelerates through space at more than 1,000,000 miles an hour. Then I have to settle myself down. Right now, relative to the ground, my feet don't move when I don't move them. So, how long does that last? Sometimes it feels like an eternity, but it's not even a blink. Thank you, Meg, and thank you for the wonderful collection, Midge.
Thank you. That was great. And I loved hearing you read from the collection as well as your own. And what wonderful poems you chose to read. So I had a request from Richard Wesley to read, but I don't think that he's on unless he's here under a different name. So unless he speaks up, we're going to continue on with our next reader, who is Martin Steingesser. And Martin's the author of 3 books of poems, and he's also an award-winning performer of poetry. I love hearing him read his poems, and I have a special place in my heart for Martin because he was one of my very first writing instructors at a workshop at Haystack many years ago. Martin's going to read a poem for us called Constellations.
Oh, it's already evening, getting dark. And now, right there, Cygnus. Here, the great wings whooping, real as raven, buzzing so low. The red squirrel, that was raven yesterday, buzzing so low, the red squirrel dropped a pine cone from her mouth. But one of us says it. How do you see a star in only 5 points? And to me, too, it seems they're just like stars. But June is being star pilot, steering us. It's the Northern Cross. His voice above, cool, clear as night, as though cruising the cosmos, and says, dark matter all around. They don't know, I say, thinking for all our stories, it's still a mystery who I am, or on whose license I'm winging where. Sasha speaks up how she had a nickname Sasquatch, bionic, Bigfoot woman. Michael pipes in. He was called Michael Motorcycle. And geez, I'm thinking, don't we sound like family? The bunch of us tossed together across a floating dock, drifting, and drifting on a floating dock, foot to foot, head to head, cross-crissed every which way. The bowl of night above, stars in the lake, far and around as I can see. Ooh, they all sigh. I've missed another shooting star. Eric from the city thinks he's shooting through Ursa Major. I feel so far from home, he says. We don't see much of stars, bears either. Someone howls, or is it a loon or wolf? Here, among Leo and, here among Leo, Sagittarius, Pegasus, we're all something wilder. Where's Orion's belt? Someone asks. And what's that cluster low over there? You know, that hot dervish, Rigel in Orion's foot, is 50,000 times, 50,000 jumps tougher than the sun. Only one of 200 billion in the Milky Way itself, millions, one among millions. And do you know each second the sun tears up some 2 billion tons of something into light? And all of us, from Sasquatch, Bigfoot, woman to galaxies, flying here on Eagle Lake, this first magnitude blue star giant night.
Thank you so much, Martin. You just brought me to summer skies in Maine. Beautiful reading. I'm gonna wrap up this portion of our program with one of my own poems and one poem from Midge Goldberg's wonderful book, Outer Space 100 Poems. So I'll end with that poem, but and then we'll take questions. So the poem of my own is called All Day I Wandered Winter Woods. Camera hung around my neck, divorced, discouraged, far from home, questioning the falling dusk, God or no God. At midnight, I stumbled from my cabin into the Arctic night to find a place to pee. Looking up, the tall Keatna mountain range loomed black, silhouetted by a glowing green, vibrating like the neon lights of Tokyo's pachinko parlors, green and pink and purple flashes, pinging steely points of stars, the sky a game of bouncing lights, impossible glow, shimmers and smokes, slaps me in the face. This, the winning number, stars tumble from above, divinity writ across the sky. And then from this book, I just love this last poem in the book, which Midge, when I talked to her, shared with me that Charles Simic, who wrote this, didn't think it was a poem when she asked him to include it. And it is so beautifully a poem. This is included by NASA in a July 2021 mission to Jupiter. I'm writing to you from a world you'll have a hard time imagining, to a world I can't picture, no matter how hard I try. Do you still have birds that wake you up in the morning with their singing, and lovers who gaze at the stars, trying to read in them the fate of their love? If you do, we'll recognize one another. Thank you. Thank you. So I will open this up to a conversation among our presenters and also with you, the folks who have listened. If you want to put a question in the chat, I would encourage you to do that. And I will look at the chat in order to funnel those questions to everyone who's been presenting today. But, you know, I'm just so pleased with this combination of things that we can do to preserve the dark sky, to celebrate this astonishing world that we live in, and through how poetry helps us to do that. And I wonder, you know, if anyone of our readers wants to comment about that mix of poetry and advocacy and wonder. I'm sure that you have something to say on the subject, John Paul.
I agree with Hillary Clinton that if you want to affect change, you first have to change the way people feel about things. And I think art, and particularly poetry, strikes to the heart, and we get involved in there. You know, as I've been thinking about this, I'm also thinking about how technology is part of the problem, but can also be part of the solution. Today's digital cameras give us images of the night sky, like what's behind most of us right now is rarely seen by the naked eye, and in many cases can't be seen by the naked eye, has to be seen by new digital sensors and telescopes. But of course, we need clear skies in order to see them, and thankfully we don't have to go to the Atacama Desert where the big telescopes are. We've got a place here in Maine. So I think art's ability to touch the heart is the key there, and to keep people engaged as well. So if more people write, if more people look, if more people make images, if more people share all of that, we're on the right track.
I agree. It just, you know, it comes from the heart to make those changes. Martin, did you have something you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, I'd like to add to what John ended with, especially we get talked at and told how to think almost continuously every day. And we even do it to each other, like I'm doing almost right now. And I love something that William Carlos Williams said that I keep repeating, and some people who know me hear it over and over again, that poetry, and it could be art writ large, celebrates the readers or the listeners' responses and values. And we need each other. And in a mysterious way, the poem includes the reader or listener. There's that saying, art recapitulates life and life recapitulates art, because it's that imagery John mentioned at the end too, that enables what is being here and seeing, but experiencing the imagery and the sounds. And that's what happens when poems use imagery. It replicates the way we experience things, and then we have our own responses. And we need each other for these responses that aren't always exactly what a poem means, but can enrich a poem. And my most wonderful example were fourth graders who I continued to learn from. I was telling them a poem about the birth of a lamb, and the shepherd takes out a slack white package. And I asked the class, what is that package? And one little girl says, it's a gift. And I had never thought of that when I had read that poem. And a little boy raised his hand and says, it's a delivery. And bango, you see. And so our responses enrich the poem in that way too. And so it becomes a dialogue instead of just being told.
It's true. I know Midge has something, and I want to encourage people that are listeners to put your questions in the chat. But Midge, I think there is a question in the chat that you might want to address, as well as whatever else you wanted to say.
Well, it's funny because the comment is exactly what I was going to say, in that when you're talking about advocacy and making people listen, is that one of the things that I found so enlightening was that I found some scientists who are also poets. I mentioned Dr. Alice Gorman. There's a Caltech astrophysicist named Yun Wang who writes poetry as well. And there's some older astronomers, Halley and Tycho Brahe in the book. And that combination of science and art together, where people who really know, the facts, but they also see the mystery and the beauty, and they combine that in a way that I just find those pieces really moving. And I agree, they're components of the same thing. And the scientists see the poetry in what they're doing, and the poets, and all of us appreciate all of the science and the fact behind the art. So I love that merging of the two. Nice.
The other one I thought you might be able to address, Midge, is that the question, is there a body of poetry about the dark sky from slaves in America?
Yeah, I don't know specifically if there is. I know I searched for different poems from different voices of the poems from different Native American tribes and poems from slaves. Phyllis Wheatley is obviously the most well-known. I think I might have found another few, but in terms of the best one, I liked Phyllis's. But yeah, it's great to get, and I see there's a comment in the chat about people using the skies to navigate the Underground Railroad. That would be really interesting. I'd love to look into that.
Great. Who is sharing screen right now? I don't think we want that. I'm going to switch it to host only. So it's none of you sharing the screen. That wasn't our planned screen share. I have a question that occurred to me, Nancy, or Tara. What are towns able to do to diminish the light pollution, and where do we go for those resources?
So I'm in the town of Surrey, which is on the Blue Hill Peninsula. And we made a town ordinance that was passed by our town meeting maybe 15 years ago. It had hardly any meat to it. But now we are, with people more aware of wanting to preserve the dark sky, we're going to work on an ordinance, a new ordinance. So towns can make ordinances. Towns can come and contact Dark Sky Maine. So that's what we're here to support. Anything to do with the night sky in Maine, to preserve it. The International Dark Sky Association, which a lot of people go to for a lot of information, which is our sort of go-to, had a model ordinance on their site, but they took it down. So I think it's something where people are working on. Also, I hesitate to mention this, but I'm going to, because what my encouragement would be for all of us to really, keep our ears open and our eyes open for what's going on in our towns and with our select boards. For example, the town of Waterville and Winslow have a common bridge across the Kennebec, and they haven't always been on very friendly terms. So the town of Winslow, as I understand it, wants to put in a special sort of old style lighting on the bridge. And the city councilors in Waterville, they want to be friendlier with Winslow. So without really looking into it, they said, yes, we agree to this. And then it was realized that these lights are not dark sky lighting. And there is some sort of a few regulations in the Department of Transportation in Maine for lighting. And they are combining the two towns. They're paying an $80,000 penalty to the state of Maine because they're choosing not to put in dark sky lighting. And that was, I've contacted them, I've worked with them. I don't know what the update is if they, for some reason, change their minds, but I think, like everything else, we have to really keep our eyes open. But if you would like to make an ordinance or do some some dark sky lighting, light pollution, Dark Sky Maine is a volunteer. We're a nonprofit, but I would love to help anyone who's interested. And it makes a huge difference in the film that you'll see, hopefully, that Tara has done, Defending the Dark. There's one part of the film that shows Augusta. I think it's 2011 light pollution map, and then 2021 10 years later. And the lighting has increased dramatically. Versant, or when it was Amera and CMP, it is to their advantage to put in LED lights in towns because you only have to do maintenance for every 20 years rather than every few years. So that's a good thing, except that we need to ask, what is the Kelvin? What is the temperature? Are they putting in 4,000, 3,000? And really what we want is 2,700 Kelvins. And there was a town near Big Bend National Park. Because Big Bend is a dark sky place, it brings a lot of tourists, and the town said, oh, we should put in new lights. And they put in new lights, but they were very bright lights, and people didn't like them because it gives sort of an eerie feeling. It turned out those lights were 4,000 or 5,000 Kelvins. So they put in the lights and then changed and had to put in all new lighting. So eventually, more and more people are going to want to preserve our dark skies. So let's do it right, the first time.
Well, and I'm seeing that in the chat because our audience comes from all over, not just from Maine. And someone posted that Flagstaff and Sedona are dark sky cities, and their ordinances are public records, so you can find them on the website. And somebody else posted that Marathon, Texas and Big Bend National Park, Texas are spectacular dark sky places. So they're all over, and it's really wonderful to see how people are helping each other in the chat. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And I see, Midge, you had a question about dealing with the issue in relationship to police lighting, that the emergency lights keep getting lighter and lighter. And was that addressed at all in your film, Tara, or have you come across that in your work, Nancy?
I've come across it when I've been driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we did not touch on the police light specifically in the film. But yeah, I believe that there are some things that even if you have a town ordinance, there are some things that are an exception. And so sometimes an emergency police station, for instance, may have an override to some of those ordinances that are put in. So it would just vary from town to town and how they want to address it. And I don't know if Nancy has more to say on that. She's more on the grounds of working on this kind of stuff.
Yes, well, and let's see. There are, yes, there are. I forget where it is in the ordinances, or about the Christmas tree lighting, even mines, and can be sort of grandfathered or accepted. Yeah, it's
It's a balance, I'm sure, between what it is that people feel is necessary for safety and what we want to preserve this natural world and not lose touch with what has inspired us for centuries. And I'm just blown away by the James Webb images that are coming through these days. I mean,
are amazing.
who knew they were so beautiful?
so in terms of safety, just want to put this out that
Yeah.
Actually lower temperature lights are most often safer than the 4,000 and 5,000 Kelvins. And on YouTube, there's this great video of a so-called thief coming into a backyard. And when the lights were really bright, you can't see this thief. But when the lights are softer, it's much easier to see. So in terms of bright lights and safety, that's not necessarily so.
I didn't know that. That is great to know.
And one other thing that is when we were at the Common Ground Fair, but people keep coming and saying, and it happened to me too, that, oh, my neighbor's light, they leave it on all winter, they go away. We're on the pond now. More and more people are coming and building camps. And what I found, and you'll see this in the film, really helped me, is I called my next door neighbor and I said, I'm going out to look at the stars. Would you be willing to turn your light off for a while? And my neighbor was like, sure. And that light, and you'll see in the film, I say it hasn't been on since. And that was, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe.
Great tip. Thank you. There's a question here for Midge, I believe, that saying, I love seeing the connections we can find in Awe of the Night Sky between people in the past and the more current voices. Did you see any difference in your research with attitudes towards space and sky between historical and modern poets?
Well, absolutely. I mean, of course, you've got early poets who are poems that see it as something, a message from God, and that has obviously changed in some cases. You see poems that are about science, but about the science of the time, and so that has changed. One of the best examples, though, is these two poets who They weren't even separated by that much, but it was this amazing argument that only happened because I put the poems, and poems ended up next to each other. So there's a poem by Edmund Halley, that of Halley's Comet. It's about it's to Isaac Newton, and it's praising Isaac Newton, and how he discovered the laws of nature. He doesn't dismiss God, but he's really focused on Newton and how Newton figured out all of this stuff and about the moon and everything. And then the very next poem, which is written 75 years later, but it's as if she's answering him directly. She's just like basically says, well, Newton's kind of godlike, but God is really God, and God could just throw away all the nature's laws if he wants to. And it's as if they're arguing with each other, just separated by these 75 years. So it's amazing to see arguments that last centuries, arguments at the same time. Even the Malay poem, there's a poem by her name's Frances. Oh gosh, if I can get her whole name right. Frances Ellen Harper. Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Sorry. She's just a few years older than her, than Malay, and yet the tone of their poems are very different. They're both looking up at the sky, but this other poet is so much more encouraged and comforted by what she sees and by God in the poem. And then Malay, of course, is just, sort of horrified at what she sees as this giant emptiness. I just really want to find her name for you. Oh gosh. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep you, but.
That's okay. We keep losing your image while you come back to us when you find it. There's a lovely comment also from someone in the UK that mentions one of their favorite places is the North York Moors, which is an international dark sky reserve. I love that we're hearing about these from all over the world. I have a question for Tara, but did you find the poem, Midge?
I did. Her name's Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and she was an abolitionist and a suffragette and poet writing, but she's only a few years old, or she's only writing a few years before Malay, but the difference between their views are very, very interesting.
That is interesting. And historically, the sky is part of our mythologies, but it's also part of science. And I love this intersection where the science and the art and the mythology all comes together. I have a question for Tara about the film. I wonder how long it took you to make it and how you do research for a film like this. Where did you find the people that you wanted to include in it?
Yeah, so it from start to finish, the filming and editing was probably roughly 7 months. And then it's a lot more work sort of getting it out and getting it promoted. But it all started with somebody who does dark sky education in New Hampshire and Maine, saw another piece of work that I had did on like outdoor education. And he loved what I had done with the Appalachian Trail education. And he reached out to me out of nowhere and said, hey, I'm doing all this work in New England. Would you want to do something around dark skies? And so that was the start. And then eventually we connected with Nancy, and then Nancy actually was sort of the pinwheel for all of this. She sort of connected me with everybody else that I needed to, because she's been doing this work in Maine for a while now, and she knew all the key people to talk to. So she was really a key player to really get all the pieces put together. But it was interesting. I like how all the poets here were talking about how important, how making change, how important it is to inspire people and to connect people rather than talk at them. And I think every person I interviewed had a similar view on it. And so it was all about, let's get people excited about the night sky. Let's go out and show them the stars. let's go out and show them nature and get them immersed in it. And when they're connected to it, then they feel like they want to protect it. And then you can provide them with information. And so it was really a theme across the board of everybody I talked to had that same kind of values around that. And so that was really interesting. And so I tried to really play that into my film, is show inspiring images, hear stories about people being connected with the night sky. And then I added in pieces of, okay, what can we do to do about it? And I really focused on trying to make it, because documentaries can sometimes be, when I watch documentaries, I get frustrated because sometimes you walk away feeling like hopeless, you know, like the problem is too big for me to solve. But with this Dark Sky project, I felt like, okay, we can be inspired by it, and then we can each take an action. And I feel like it's something, what the film, I hope at least, my intent was that when you watch it, you feel inspired, and that you do feel like you can go out and make a change on your own. You know, maybe it is just in your backyard, but even that one change of changing a light bulb is going to make a difference so like there's nighttime pollinators, for instance. So by turning out a light or changing a light bulb could change that little square, you know, section of your little part of the world. And that makes a difference. And then of course we talk on a bigger level too about changing in cities and counties and states and whatnot. But yeah, it really is empowering to be able to take this into your own and make it your own, do what you want with it.
I just love, and I think that's a great place for us to wrap, you know, for this poetry, for this film, for this work to inspire us. And that even a small change can make a difference. In those small changes, sometimes we feel so defeated by the enormity of what we need to change and do to save the planet. And I love that you're sharing with us the little things we can do by changing a light bulb, turning a light out, as well as the bigger things that we can do. And I feel like I'm leaving here inspired. I hope that everyone leaves this event to feel inspired. If you're inspired to make just $12 donation, you can go to the website and make that donation, and we'll send you a link to the full 30-minute documentary that Tara has made. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you, Midge, for bringing us this wonderful book. And I know we put links in the chat to, yeah, I think you can see it if I hold it right in front of my face, but it's a beautiful hardcover book. And I hope that you sell lots of them, because it's an inspiring collection, 100 poems, outer space. And Nancy, thank you for being here to let us know about the efforts of Dark Sky Maine. Martin and John Paul, thank you both so much for sharing your poetry that inspires us just to appreciate the world around us. So with that, don't forget to come back February 12th for love letters on the Poets Corner. And if you're so inspired to submit your epistolary poems, we'd love to see them. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Meg. Good night.